Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, FY 2023 Access to Justice Design and Testing Program, hosted by the Bureau of Justice Statistics. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Heather Brazos, Chief for the Victimization Statistics Unit within BJS, for welcome remarks and to begin the presentation. Heather?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining today. We have a short presentation that we will walk through. My name is Heather Brazos, Chief of Victimization Statistics, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues in a minute to introduce themselves. We'll walk through the presentation, and if you have questions, please go ahead and put those into the Q&A. We'll have plenty of time at the end to address those as best as we can. So with that, I will hand it over to Suzanne.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Suzanne Strong, and I am the Chief of the Judicial Statistics Unit. We're excited to walk through this solicitation with all of you today. Emily?
My name is Emily Cohen. I'm a statistician in the Victimization Statistics Unit, and I will be the program manager for this solicitation. Perfect. So this solicitation, it is an entirely new program, meaning there is no incumbent, and we're entering into an exciting new area of trying to look into new, well, not necessarily new, but an interconnection between the civil and criminal justice systems. So as we know, victims and perpetrators of crime often face related civil issues, either as a direct result of the crime or as something that likely is connected. So we need more information and data on how they're connected, including the nature and magnitude of this relationship. So within the grant or the cooperative agreement, it's going to require three main tasks, including program management, developing and testing the civil legal needs assessment, or survey, and identifying and developing and testing other data collections related to the justice of the civil legal needs. So we could do the next slide, please. So the first task is related to your program management. And so there are some key components to that. The first of which is your projected timeline for your key tasks and when you will complete the tasks in your deliverables. And so that's within that, you're also going to have a communication plan where you are keeping us apprised or proposing how we work together, and you will communicate those, your hierarchy, how you will be planning and developing and managing the funds. You're also going to set up a series of meetings, the first of which will be a kickoff meeting with the BJS team. And then also throughout the process, you'll be holding stakeholder meetings, especially during tasks 2 and 3, so with experts and stakeholders in the civil legal needs community. You're going to be submitting a series of progress reports, kind of thinking time-wise, moving from more like larger to more often. So you're looking at your semi-annual reports, specifically on the status of the award as a whole, your progress with the deliverables and your timeline, as well as your expenditures. In line with that, you'll be submitting quarterly financial reports, and then monthly you'll be submitting progress reports with a bit more of detail of where you are on the tasks in your timeline and your expenditures as well. Finally, during any type of data collection, you're going to be submitting reports on where you stand with your sample collection, your parent data. So how many interviews have you collected? What are your response rates? What does that look like? You'll also be keeping us apprised with decision memos. So really, what are those milestones or changes from your original plan? Potentially, what is the problem or what has been that change, and how will you address that? How did you come to the decisions that you did? And this includes keeping those all in one place in an active log of those decision memos in real time, and keeping track of where you stand with those decisions. So are they under review? Have they been approved? Things of that nature. You're also going to be submitting a data management plan. And so what are your specific procedures for which the data is going to be collected, acquired, processed, stored, disposed of. And so making sure that you have a really solid plan for that and what that is going to look like.
All right, so task 2 is completely focused on the civil legal needs survey and all of the things that we need to do to develop this instrument and go through all the OMB clearance process and then to conduct a pilot test. So as referenced in the solicitation, we do have a draft instrument that we will be starting from, and we will share that with the selected awardee. There are several subtasks under task 2 that are all laid out explicitly within the solicitation that you can read through. I won't read aloud every single one of them, but if you have questions, please let us know. The main focus of this task is really on this CLINS, the Civil Legal Needs Survey, which is focused on collecting information from individual persons and their experiences and interactions related to all of the information that we're trying to get a better sense of through this instrument. And this is a pilot, so we expect to be learning a lot that we can then leverage and apply as we start to learn more about this landscape, which, as Emily mentioned, this is a new project area for us. So we expect there to be a big learning curve and a lot of information that we'll be learning through task 2. And so you can read through all of the different steps that we expect to go through as far as the CLINS is concerned. The main points here being that this is going to be a web-based pilot, and we will be very focused on developing an understanding of how well this instrument is working with the population that we'll be testing it with, and then analyzing and reporting out those findings from this pilot test. Hand it to Suzanne to talk about task 3.
Thanks, Heather. The third task in the solicitation is to develop and test new areas of data collection that address gaps in the coverage of access to justice. As noted in the solicitation, BJS is limited in terms of what it can collect in terms of the civil justice system, in that it has to have a direct intersection with the criminal justice system. The parts of this task are a little, well, they're straightforward, but the first part is to develop a knowledge base, so a report of the current state of research into the types of civil legal needs that people experience and the intersections between the civil and criminal justice systems. After developing this report, the awardee will work with BJS to develop options for a feasibility study to access different areas of information outside of the Civil Legal Needs Survey. This could come from courts, this could come from interviews, it could come from state agencies. There's different areas of information that we expect will be relevant to both the civil and criminal justice system intersections. The next step would be to work with BJS to decide which feasibility study or studies to implement. And part of that is to develop a work plan. So that will include the data sources, data collection analysis methods, staffing plan, budget, and a study timeline. If more than one topic is selected, there would be more than one work plan. We would be also collecting this under generic OMB clearance, so that would be another deliverable under this particular task. Conducting the studies, summarizing the findings, and then delivering data files and documentation. For the purposes of the solicitation and the proposals that you will be writing, BJS provided 2 sample topics, and that is fines and fees and expungement. In terms of fines and fees, criminal fines and fees can affect people's access to different payment plans, and non-payment can result in different consequences for individuals. We want to know how you would design a study for fines and fees. And the second topic is expungement. People with criminal records have limited access to certain civil rights, and so we have no idea on the national level how many expungements are filed in a particular year. So we want to know how you would approach those two particular issues. And you can read more about those deliverables on pages 14 to 17 of the solicitation. Next slide, please. Just some basic details about the award. BJS anticipates that we will be providing one award. The maximum award amount is $2 million. This is a 36-month or 3-year period of performance, and this will be awarded as a cooperative agreement, which means that BJS will have substantial involvement in the decisions made along the way. And now I'd like to open it up for any questions that have come in, or if you have any questions about the solicitation or the presentation in general.
So there's one question in the Q&A. I'll read it out for everybody. It says, how complete is the draft instrument and how extensively do you expect the awardee to be revising the topical / substantive coverage versus simply refining existing question wordings and formats? So as we described in task 2A, we do have a complete instrument. What we anticipate the work will involve is making refinements to that instrument based on the environmental scan work that is done, as well as based on input from subject matter experts that are engaged through the project. And we have on page, 10, a description of that and what we expect as far as that is concerned. If you have other questions, please put them into the chat for the Q&A. How was the instrument developed? BJS developed this as part of an earlier project. And we'll share more of those details with the selected awardee. Do we anticipate using incentives? So if you will review pages 10 to 11 really go through everything that we're expecting as far as the web-based pilot. And under 2F is a statement that says BJS does anticipate incentives will be used to encourage participation. So we look forward to what you recommend as part of your application for that part of the proposal. Are you thinking of this being more like a contract with a survey contractor or more like a research grant with an academic research team? I'm not sure what you mean. This is going to be a cooperative agreement, as Suzanne mentioned, and all of the requirements with respect to what a cooperative agreement is and how the application should be submitted are provided as part of the solicitation. Daryl, I don't know if we can post the contact information for the various helplines with Just Grants and grants.gov, which may be helpful to mark here. Okay. I think Daryl just posted some links in the chat. If you have questions after the solicitation, there are instructions within the, or after this webinar, there are instructions within the solicitation to send an email to askbjs@usdoj for programmatic questions. We'll hang on the line for another minute or so if anybody thinks of another question, but you can follow up afterwards using that email address. There it is on the slide. Email subject FY 2023 JDTP, and that will make sure it finds the three of us. Is the sample size for the pilot meant to be after attrition and thus the analysis set? So we look forward to your proposal as far as sample size and other methodological considerations. We have provided the information that we have so far within the solicitation and look forward to your recommendations on the best way to approach this study. Oh, I see another question here. Will the same or different sample be used for the NCVS and the CLINS? This is completely independent of the NCVS. Just checking with Daryl, Suzanne, Emily, have you received any additional questions or any other final comments?
Mm-hmm. I have not.
I have nothing in the chat or a question view at this time. And then, as mentioned too, as we started, this will be posted to the BJS website, so you'll be able to access the recording and the PowerPoint slides from today if you have any questions.
Thank you. We look forward to your applications.
Wonderful. So on behalf of the Bureau of Justice Statistics and our panelists, thank you for joining today's webinar. This will end today's presentation.